Welcome back to the Flutter tutorial. In the last video we looked at creating a navigation drawer for our phone, or for our app rather, and today we're going to be looking at creating a system to pass arguments between screens. The way we're going to want to model these arguments is through another dictionary where we can map named variables to values. So essentially, if we wanted to pass arguments to page 2, what we can do is we're going to create a variable in page 2 of map string to dynamic of args, and then in the constructor we're going to say map, and all we're going to put in there is just this.args. This tells, make sure that's page 2 and not map in there. So all this tells the compiler to do is when you initialize page 2 with some argument, just set that to args immediately. Alright, so we can go ahead and save that. We're going to get a bunch of errors because we haven't passed in any variables to the constructor when we actually call this. So what we're going to do to actually add that functionality is we're going to go back into the navigator class, and we're going to add a function to actually handle this. So we're going to say void send to, and we're going to pass in a route. So we're going to say string route, and then an optional parameter will be in square brackets, and we're going to map string to dynamic args. And then we also need a context at the front. So build context, just like that. And then in there, all we're going to say is navigator.push, and we're going to pass in context, and then material, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a discrepancy between functions that do have arguments and functions that don't. So what we're going to do is in send to, what we're going to have to do is say navigator, or if args is equal to null, we're going to say no arguments. So we'll just do it normally. So we're going to say navigator.push. We're going to pass in context, and the material page route as normal, builder routes at rt at func. Okay, in the send to function, we're going to want to create a discrepancy between functions that require arguments and functions that don't. So what we want to do is we're going to say if args is equal to null, we're going to have no arguments. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a widget placeholder, so widget result. And all we're going to say is result is equal to routes at func, and we're just going to pass in context. Now this works because in our thing up here, we said that the callback function pass in context. So essentially we're calling that function and passing in context. Now for page 2, we're going to have to add that arguments variable for it. So we're just going to say args And then in page 2 here, we're going to say args colon args, just to specify that this is the same thing over here. One thing we might need to add, because this is kind of messing up, is we might just need to add the curly braces around it, and that should, yeah, that fixes it. Okay, so we can save everything here, and then in navigator.dart we want to add the other side, so else contains arguments, and we're going to say result is equal to routes at route at func, and we're going to pass in context and args, and that should work. So we save that, and then instead of having this function, oh sorry, last thing we want to do in send2 is just say navigator dot push, and we're just going to pass in results. Okay, last thing we have to do in the send2 function, last thing we have to do in the send2 function is we actually have to tell the app to go to this page. So the way we're going to do that is navigator.of context.push, and we're going to pass in a page route builder, just like the list view builder that we had. And we're going to say the page builder will take in context, and it's just going to go to results, just like that. I'm not sure why this is giving me an error. Oh, and then context, and it has an animation after it as well. But the animation we won't need right now. Still not getting push. Yes. Okay. So we just have to tack in the 2 animation variables on there. We actually will be looking at these next. We don't need them right now, but we will be looking at them in the future. All right. So when we now we have to replace this on tap here with the new function. So we're going to say send2. We're going to say context route, and we do want a way to actually add the arguments. So what we're going to do is in build list, we're going to add a new variable, optional, and it's going to be a map of string to a map of string to dynamic. So this just maps a route to an argument dictionary. So we're going to say, if in on tap, what we're going to write is if args does not equal null, and args.contains key rt, we're going to say send2 context route and args at rt. Oh, not route, rt. And else we're just going to say send to context and rt. All right, so when we restart the app, we should get an error because we're not, we will get an error because we're not actually specifying any arguments here. So in main.dart, what we can say is in build list, we can pass a dictionary, and we'll say /p2, and then we'll map that to, let's just say name Flutter, just like that. So this will eventually pass in a dictionary to page 2, and then in page 2 what we can say is, instead of the text here, we can just say args name, All right, so save that, save main.dart, restart it. I'm getting this formatting is weird here. Oh, why did it do that? All right, hopefully this works. All right, so we'll open up the navigator, press page 2, and you see that it passed in the name Flutter to page 2, which is what we wanted. Yeah, so that is essentially passing in arguments through routes. So recap, all we did was we added a new method to actually process these arguments. We added the capability to add arguments in our route list here with an extra parameter, and then we added the option to put arguments in the button over in the list builder over here. Another way that we can actually, if you want more proof that this works, what we can say is this button will send a different thing, and we can say instead of on pressed, we're going to say nav.send_to, and we're going to send context the route of /p2, and then we'll send in an argument of name to name2, just like that, colon, semicolon, reload it, and then if we go back here, and then we and we press this button here, go to page 2, you see that it has the different variable. Yeah, so that is arguments with navigation.